everybody, and welcome to Community Cleric. I can see my mic is working. I can see Hayley's mic is working.
Yay!
Ultimately, who cares about the other stuff? Welcome to Community Cleric, everybody. My name is Sarah. I am here on the traditional and unceded territories of the Mi'kma'ki people in Nova Scotia, Canada. And my super amazing guest tonight is Hayley. I'm sorry we started late. You guys know I'm usually like a stickler to start on time, but we were just having such a good time talking that I didn't want to interrupt that. So
I have a tendency to derail things, so I apologize.
You can't derail this. You can't derail this. The whole show there's no rails for the show to be on. So you're welcome to try, but it's not happened yet. And I've had some crazy people on. Hayley does some super amazing and very unique things in the TTRPG space. Some things that are not unique because I'm really careful with the women that I pick for this show. Hayley is this bright, shining ball of sunshine and support on Twitter. And so if you're not following her, I've just linked her stuff in chat and you should do so now. Because even if you only do what I do a couple days ago and just click media, I don't know if you're familiar with Twitter, you know that there's a place where you can go to just click the media and just click through the media. That says a lot about a person, what media they're posting. And already, I knew when I booked Hayley months ago. I feel
it was a while. I actually forgot about it, and then you messaged me I think 3 weeks ago, and you're like, "Okay, so," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes." Mm-hmm. It was in my calendar, but I'd forgotten about it.
Yeah, fair enough. And that's why I reconfirm a few weeks in advance. But
Hayley, it was months ago.
It was months ago because I try to book out and then I backfill up. I'm not constantly booking that far out. So right now I'm just starting to book for July and August. And but I booked you months ago and I'm so glad that I was able to get you here tonight. Thank you for being here with me.
Thank you for inviting me.
This is going to be so exciting. As you can see on Hayley's set shelf, there are some very specific things. And we're going to talk about that number 2, because that is one of the things that Hayley that's really unique about the way that Hayley is and the way that she is contributing to the TTRPG family. So I want to do that. I want to talk about that. But my first question is for you. It's the same for all of my guests. My first question is, how did you become a nerd?
Oh, I think I came out of the womb a nerd. I was born to 2 very nerdy parents. My dad was a guitarist and kind of a hippie. He had the long leather fringe jacket in college. And my mom was a horse rider in Wyoming. She was a barrel rider and a rodeo queen.
She's from Wyoming?
I'm not.
What part of Wyoming is she from?
Oh, sorry, not Wyoming. I'm sorry, Montana.
Oh, close enough.
It was very close.
So few people from Wyoming and Montana.
Well, my sister now lives in Jackson, and my brother-in-law is from Jackson, born and raised,
right?
Generational there. So my whole family is just you take the Rocky Mountains. This is where we reside.
Good people up there.
It is. It's so nice up here. As long as you're okay with cougars and Bigfoot, we're fine. It's all good. But no, they were really into Lord of the Rings and kind of outdoorsy, one with nature kind of stuff. And then my dad kind of passed that on to me. Out of everyone in my family, I'm the most like my father. So when he would read Lord of the Rings or fantasy novels, he would kind of pull me in and be like, "Hey, let me read this to you for a little bit." And then as I grew, I just kind of that blossomed into other spaces. And I finally found my own voice in what I loved to read, which was paranormal romance and just paranormal, period. This was back in the day when there was not a genre.
Right.
When it was not a genre. Sorry, I just whacked my microphone. But I was reading the few authors that there were, like Charlene Harris and the author of the Anita Blake series. Laurel K. Hamilton and L.J. Smith, these authors that were writing in this genre before it was a thing, before Twilight really blew it up, with now urban fantasy. I found how much I loved it, and I started writing in that. And I I didn't find TTRPGs though until I was 33.
So
okay. I was a nerd in a lot of other ways. I was an opera nerd for a while because that's what I got my degree in. And
that's really cool. Yeah. So, the reason that I start with that is because nobody that I've talked to yet, you're episode 20, none of the women that I've talked to yet was like, I was raised where my parents played D&D. And so that was the nerd that I have always been, it would a lot of, you're the first person to mention like paranormal fiction. But a lot of like sci-fi and fantasy books being a really through line with most of the other women that I've interviewed. So and then like there's about half of the women that I've interviewed are like, I get it from my parents. I just come by it naturally. It was genetics. There was no chance. There was no hope for me.
There was no way.
There was no hope. That's just what it was going to be. And then the other half are like, my parents were satanic panic and this was my rebellion and I stuck with it, I love that. So then you loved paranormal. Fuzka says she loves your makeup.
I know. I just saw that comment. I'm like, thank you very much. It took me many, many years to figure out how to do makeup on my own face. Do makeup on other people? I have tried. My face though.
I tell you what, I had, Candace, that Candace girl? She was, even if you don't know her, she was on my show last week and she like
she went all out.
She's so gorgeous. And I am not a makeup person.
Okay. Thank you.
Makeup person. And I just like, I will watch TikToks of people doing makeup all day long.
Yeah.
And then I look like Mimi from the Drew Carey show when I try to do something. I don't. Oh my God. Maybe it's because it doesn't look that bad and I'm my own worst critic. Maybe it's that.
Guarantee you that.
I'm sure that that's some of it. Some of it is that I have never worn makeup. And so like, I just, when I see myself in makeup, I'm like,
that's not,
yeah, totally.
Yeah. The only time I do makeup is like this is when I stream. And so my kids know when something big is happening. Like if I put makeup on and I'm not streaming, the boys are like, I didn't know you had a show tonight. I'm like, I do put on makeup outside of stream nights.
Come on. Yeah. And fair enough. Like, yes, I love that. So if you want to shout out any of your favorite makeup brands, feel free to do that.
Dollar Tree. I'm not kidding. 90% of what I get is from the Dollar Tree. My these, what is that? Contour, all my contours from the Dollar Tree. My eyeshadow is sometimes from the Dollar Tree, depending on what palette I'm using. And my lipstick right now is from the Dollar Tree, but that's because they had ADRELL. They do lashes.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't know they did makeup, and they had like a whole ton of it at our Dollar Tree. And so I just went through and I found all of my colors. I have way too much makeup because that's what I do. I go to discount thrift stores or whatever and overstock, and
that doesn't work. Color is so beautiful. It's so like rich. I really love it. I did my nail, like I'm not even like a nail. I don't, but it's Pride Month. So I'm
obsessed with nails too, but mine are books. They're little book stamps.
I'm so
like, you can't tell them very well, but it says like, books are better than people, and like books are cool, and I heart books, and like, yeah, I'm in love with stamping.
I don't even know about this technology. You know what?
It's like a stamp for your nails. You put it down and you scrape the excess off, and then you get the stamp, or you put it and then you put it on your nail, and it's a whole. I will send you a link, and that will get you obsessed.
That is amazing.
Because
that
it's so
like
easy.
To do.
It's so easy.
I learned here's what I learned about makeup today. That my top coat, which is something that sometimes people use, melts my color, and it just washed all the way down my finger. I guess they don't react well with each other.
What type of are you using? Normal
the white is like I don't know, SC or whatever from Walmart.
Okay. Like,
and then the top coat is like something that I found on sale at the drugstore. It was like in the clearance bin, and it's like all natural organics. And it's like, I don't know, beeswax and pork fat or something. I don't know, but like it melted it looked so bad. And because it's so white, it just looked like
smears.
A bird pooped all over my finger. It was so bad. It was so bad.
That's awful. There are few things in makeup that I will pay like significant amount of money for, and nail polish is one of them, because like cheap, like Dollar Tree cheap nail polish will chip off in less than an hour after you put it on, no matter how many coats you put on. It can look gorgeous right after you do it. But if you pay $10, $15, $20 for a thing of nail polish, it really will stay on for 2 weeks. I keep smacking.
It's fine. I don't care. My, you know what? My producer cannot be upset at me tonight because this is the first time that I'm using Zencaster. She had to pull the audio off of the Twitch stream previously. So
that's not fun.
She doesn't get to be upset at us tonight because we're finally using Zencaster. I am not, because I don't like the way that makeup looks. I really struggle. I will drop $600 on a Coach purse. Like there's no problem. I love a good shoe. I'm not the makeup. That's not how I express my feminine side.
Yeah.
However, my sister-in-law a couple years ago got me a Michael Kors like $80 teal. And it is the best nail, like one coat, and there's
the pigmentation
it's like good. Self-leveling cement. It just like it's perfect. And
there is a very big difference. I think as I got older, I started to realize this, and we see this in gaming too. Sorry, I'm just gonna throw this back around gaming. With dice. Like if you spend a fair amount of money on your dice, you can generally feel comfortable that you're getting a good quality set of dice that are going to hold up really well, that are going to stay like nice for longer periods of time. But there are some places that like I've bought dice from like, okay, guys, Dollar Tree is my favorite store in the entire world, so leave me alone. But they sell RPG dice. And when I saw them the first year that they were out, I think I bought 10 sets.
Sure.
And I'm so glad that I did, in the regard that like, I've never seen them again. Like that's not true. I've only ever seen them in brown, but I've never seen them in multiple colors since then.
I remember seeing a few years ago at the Dollar Tree. Now I'm in Canada, so the stuff that we get is a little bit different. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. But I do remember like the blue with the gold, but I already had that color. And now you're right. Like all I see is like that coffee brown.
Yeah, it's so gross. And I'm like, what happened to the night? Like they had purple and red and blue and green, and like they had the rainbow of colors, and now you can't find them. But those, like when I roll with those versus rolling with my metal dice, I'm always just like, ugh, go away.
So the metal dice, you know what? No, we're going to talk about dice. I saved dice till the end to make everybody stay watching, because showing off dice is like one of the things people come for. So
I will just say they are my favorite dice. They are the very first set of dice I ever bought too. So like you know can stay to the end to see how beautiful they are.
Metal dice take a lot of hate online. But I have yet to interview a single woman who can't tell me the most beautiful story about their connection with their metal dice.
Plus, it's nice to have something hard in your hand.
Absolutely. You're not going to freak out this audience with that.
It's good to
This is probably the most tame already first few minutes of the stream that I've had ever.
Well, I'm kind of vanilla in that place of my life. I'm like, I've been married to the same man for 13 years. He's the only man I've ever been with. We have 3 children. Like, it's like, we are so like apple pie and vanilla ice cream.
I mean, look, I've been married almost 19 years. We're at, you know what? I got engaged. What month is it? What year is
June,
it?
2022.
We got engaged 19 years ago next month. And we got married real quick. From the day that we met, from the day that we were introduced to the day we got married was 13 months. And we didn't live in the same country. We had only physically met in person for like 2 weeks, essentially. Like we went on a vacation together to DC for a few days, and then he came down for Christmas for like 10 days. And so when we got married, we had only really met for like 2 weeks.
We're like, well, now we
strangers
can
on the internet. It never
really
goes
get
bad.
to know each other.
That's my anecdotal evidence.
I love it. I love it.
Worked for us. But we didn't meet like on Match.com. I've told this story to people who watch Community Cleric. We didn't meet on Match.com. We met playing a Star Trek role-playing game.
That is the best.
It was like email role-playing because like Skype wasn't a thing. Yahoo Messenger and ICQ didn't have video components to them. None of us, most of us were still on dial-up. And it was like chat. It was like text chat. And email. So we met playing an email Star Trek role-playing game. And
that is so cool. Did you guys get a lot of hate? Because at that time, meeting someone online was like, are you insane?
When I told my grandparents that he was coming down, and they were like, and where did you meet this person? You met him like through your church? And I was like, no, I met him online. And they were like, no, only rapists and murderers are online. And I went, but I'm online and I'm not a rapist or a murderer. And they went, no, because you're the person who gets murdered. And I was like, I don't think he's Canadian. They don't hurt people. That's not like, who they are.
The most they say is aid, get out of the way.
You know, and he came down, and my husband is Canadian, but he has an American history degree with a specialization in military. And my grandpa served 42 years in the U.S. military, in the U.S. Navy.
Wow.
And so he came down, and the first thing he did, he was like, you were in the Navy, right? Can I ask you about some things? And he buttered my grandpa. He knew what he was doing.
Charmed the pants off of your elders. I like it.
By the end of the weekend, my grandpa was like, yeah, sure, whatever, fine.
You're like, you have my blessing. It's awesome. He's cool.
Yeah, it was totally. he's going to move here, right? It was not like nobody thought that I would move to Canada, but of course that's what happened. Look, I have already used half of your time. We're halfway through, Hayley.
I'm so sorry.
Don't be sorry, because this is the best part of this show, is that I just get to talk to amazing people, amazing women.
I have to tell you though, the very first show I was ever on was I was invited on to a show called Midlife Dices. And it was
we love Midlife Dices.
I know, I love Joel so much, but it was like his first or second episode of that DM show that he did for a while. And it ended at like an hour and a half in. We did not get off the Zoom call until 4 hours later, maybe 5. And my husband went to bed and he was like, I'm going to bed. And I was like, okay, cool. And then it was like an hour and a half later, finally. And they were all all the other people that had been on, the panelists were on the East Coast. Right. So it was midnight for me. It was 2 a.m. there. And I'm like, you guys, why are you all still awake?
Look, I mean, when you connect with somebody, I get it. I get it. One of the first, maybe the first interview that I did after I started streaming with Vancouver by Night was for Chef Byers. He doesn't do the stream anymore, but it was an interview show, and he would bring on like 5 people over the course of the night, and everybody would get like 15, 20 minutes. And he never went overtime with anybody. Really? He would like cut you off mid-sentence and be like, peace, thanks for dropping by.
And that's your time, bye.
Yeah. And he kept me on for like an extra like 15, 20 minutes. And, just like chatting, just a good conversation. That's part of why I run the show the way that I do, why it's like conversational. What was your first TTRPG experience? You said you were 33. How did that like come about?
Okay. So of course, as all things with us DMs, we have to tell stories when we tell things. So I think that I was being blessed by the TTRPG gods with another chance, because this is how it all happened. High school, I was in theater, and all of my friends were into D&D, like huge into D&D. And they invited me to come, but I was like super prissy. and I had a boyfriend, and I was like, no, that's like your thing. It's fine. Bye. And then when I was in college, there was a group playing Vampire the Masquerade. And I was so fascinated, and I watched them play for a little while, and I was like, I kind of want to play. But then I like felt super weird because the GM was someone that we had a very hate, little bit of love kind of relationship where like it was, if this was a paranormal romance, it was like they get stuck in the same situation together and end up falling in love. But it was, so I felt weird about being in the game. And then fast forward to when I was 33, come the pandemic, we have 3 boys who at the time were 8, 5, and 4. And I was about to kill them. And my husband was like ready to commit homicide. And so he's like, okay, we got to do something. I can't stand the sound of the TV anymore. We have to do something. And he's like, okay, let's play D&D. Because our oldest is autistic. And so we were like, okay, maybe this will help him with like social, since we can't go out and do stuff. We can like imagine it. And so they played for a little bit, and I was still kind of, eh. And then he's like, hey, come play with us. And I'm like, eh. And then we actually started really playing. And then I was kind of like, oh, this is kind of fun, but like, I like being able to do stuff. And then we started playing with my family. My mother and my father would come over, and we were playing a Pathfinder adventure path with one of the more famous ones. And that was really when I saw the vision of TTRPGs and what they can be. And as a writer myself, as a novelist, it was like, I can create an entire world that my characters live in and drop them in it and say, go have fun. And so that's when I switched from wanting to just be a player to wanting to be a GM. Because I was like, I want to just like do the things and make the decisions and create the situations. And yeah. So that was it.
You know what? That's are we parallel? Like that's very much, are we the same? Very much like it was before the pandemic. It was the summer before the pandemic hit. But my friend who's now my channel mod, shout out Singles, she's my real life friend, and she was over at our house, and we were just kind of chatting, and I was saying, oh yeah, I'm a theater kid in high school, played it a little bit, but the group that I was with were min-maxers and math nerds. And that's great for them. They loved it. They had such a good table for them, but it wasn't, I was the theater nerd. I wanted to role play. And so like, it just wasn't for me. And then, I had kind of tried to get my friends over the years to play different things with me, and it never really took off. And I just kind of mentioned to her that, I always, it's probably time for me to try to pin everybody down to playing a game again. And she was like, my brother used to play. And when his friends wouldn't come, they would have me step in and play. And I've always wanted to play. They wouldn't like let me play full time. And I always wanted to play. And I was like, well, there's a game store 10 steps outside my balcony. We lived in like a downtown core outside of Vancouver. And there was a game store. I could see it from my balcony. I was like, let's go over and buy the starter kit. Let's play. And like, your kid is 10. Our kids are best friends. Your kid is 10. My kid is 10. That's a great age. Let's do this. And our kids did not stick it out with us. But we now are almost 3 years into the campaign.
That's awesome.
And, and it's just, that is something that I really appreciate. You are also, there have been several women in the last couple of people that I've interviewed that have said the pandemic really, I was thirsting for something creative. I wasn't in like the rat race rush anymore that I was in. So I had time to satisfy that creativity, and how I found to do it. So I love that. And then you also answered, which is really great. One of the questions that I ask later is like, refer to DM or do you play? And clearly like,
well, okay. So here's the thing. I love to role play. That is my thing. My husband does not love it the way that I do.
Okay.
So he doesn't totally love the way that I GM, because I GM like political situations and like I create interesting machinations socially. And he's like, I want to hit something. And I'm like, okay, I will make sure we hit something next session. I'm sorry. But like, I don't think about it that way. So I loved GM, but it has to be with like people who would rather role play. That's what I think like VTM would be a better game for me to like be a GM for than like D&D or Pathfinder or something like that, because I'm not a huge fan of
the
that's not
combat
true.
side.
I do love combat, but it's just like GMing combat is so boring, especially if there's just two of you, which is like us. It's very,
because you guys play in a very, okay. So talk about your streams on your channel.
Okay. So our channel got started with being a theater person. You don't go halfway with anything. You're like, if it's going to be performative, it's going to be performative.
I just need future Ryu, who's my podcast producer and co-founder here at Girls Run These Worlds, to hear the reality of what you just said, because my co-founders have rode me for months now that I had this grand idea and they were caught off guard by how quickly GRTW launched and like what it's done. And I was like, how can you guys be surprised by this? This was what the plan was all along. And they were like, no, that was your plan, which never coincides with reality. We didn't anticipate you being right. And so I just need her to hear that like theater people do things big and grand.
Always, the bigger it is, the better it is. And I went into opera as well. So it's like, I went on like the really big side of life. So when I discovered TTRPGs and then my husband introduced me to Critical Role, I was like,
come on.
We need to stream our games. So because with the pandemic, we didn't have anyone to stream with. And we were like, I don't have anybody to play with. And my husband Weston wanted to be the GM. But then I was like, but I want to be the GM too. So we came up with this idea of Party of Two, where we build a story cooperatively as GMs, but then as players as well. So when my husband started, he was the GM. All the NPCs were his NPCs, but he also had a player character that while he was in the GM's chair was an NPC. But then he finished a story arc and we got to a good place. Then we switched. So then I became the GM and he became the player. And that player that I like, the character I was playing, then became an NPC. I hope that makes sense.
It does make sense.
So we were weaving stories together in the same world with the same characters, picking up threads that the other person left off, and having this really beautiful, fairly epic story coming to light where he had been a slave in the world of Golarion, which is the Paizo official world.
Right.
He was in an area that's kind of like Nazi Germany was during World War II. And so he had been a slave and I was a Hell Knight, and I was too good to be a Hell Knight. And so I was going to get myself killed and he didn't want me to die. And there was like this whole thing. So then we end up it became this really big thing. And I really loved it. And so that became like our us time. And then because I'm thinking we should do something else too. We build our own terrain. And so it was like, well, let's do a show where we're just talking and we're already building terrain.
Yeah.
So let's just do that. So then Tabletop Terrain Talks was born. And that was our show on Monday nights. And it was just kind of a talk show and whatever. And throughout time, it got more and more complicated where now we actually don't craft at all. But we do TTRPG News, which is a roundup of all of the biggest headlines from the previous week, which took off a little bit more than I expected it to. Our most recent episode on our VOD for that has like 230 views, which is our highest viewed episode so far. I think it's because we did address the Phoenix Stone issue. We did it very respectfully. I'm not a gossip columnist, but I do feel like that was going to have extending reaches within the community. So I'm like, hey, This is what happened, whatever. but now we just started a new show called the Family Gaming Experience, and it's all about gaming and RPGs through the family lens. So it's like discussions, advice. We bring on creators who do stuff for like family friendly content, like cartoonists. And we have a couple of podcasters lined up for the next couple of weeks, and cosplayers and writers. And it's become this really cool thing. And it's been kind of my heart for the last couple of months. And I'm just, yeah.
I love that. I'm so glad to hear that there's more people focused on like that family friendly thing. Like one of the things when we were first starting this channel is Ryu has Roll for Luck, which is a long-term game it's a D&D game, but it's a homebrew world. And I have Community Cleric, and like where my heart is. And Jazz, one of our other players, or one of our other founders, plays D&D with her goddaughter. So she gets her goddaughter like on a Friday night, and they build the map and look through the monster manual and figure it out. And then Sunday morning, the whole family sits down together, and the like 5-year-old goddaughter runs the whole encounter, and everybody plays. And like,
that's awesome.
What a way to be supportive. And so, we're trying to. She runs a program for college kids during the summer, so she's not going to be available this summer, but we'd love for her, like through the school year, to run a Saturday morning cartoon style show that's like family friendly programming on a Saturday morning,
awesome.
So that parents can like log in with their kids and watch and talk about stuff. And like, there's so much, and like me as a teacher, like I'm all over it. Like there's so much possible. So I love that you're doing
for sure.
friendly.
Well, and we were trying to find our voice too, because like when you first start, and we started from scratch.
Find your niche.
You've got to find your niche, but you've also got to find your voice. Like, what do you resonate the most with? And we kind of like, I spent the last year trying to kind of find that, and then this happened. Like this idea came, and I was approached from one of our co-creators about it, and it was like everything just fell into place, and I was like, yep. This is what I want to do. And this is how I want to do it, especially with like the fact that we have 3 little boys and we play with them, and they sometimes love it and sometimes would rather go watch someone playing video games on the TV, because playing your own video games, why would you do that? But yeah, it's fun. I love it. It's just, it makes me happy.
I love that. What time is it? Okay. No, we're doing okay. And
I was like, we're kind of back on track a little bit.
We're doing fine. I don't care. It's fine. I've got another couple of weeks. This is supposed to be the only thing that happens on Thursday nights that I can run long if I want to, but in a couple of weeks we announced which game it is yet? I don't know that I've announced which game it is, so I'm not going to say which game it is.
You're like, I can't say anything.
We have a game that's going to start airing on Thursday nights. And so they're like, as we log off, they're hijacking the stream and going. So
you're like, you have to be done.
But not tonight. Not tonight. Do you do any other, and I know it's like still the pandemic and that has really affected everything. Do you guys, have you guys gone to a convention as a family yet?
Yes.
How did it go?
So, well, hold on. Are we saying like ever of all time, or post-pandemic, or like
because you guys started doing like TTRPG and stuff, but any nerd convention.
So
as a family.
So the very first year that the Salt Lake Comic-Con, which is now called FanX, happened, we went that very first year. And I felt like it was really important for us to go the first year, because I was like, the first year is the most important and we have to show support. Yeah. So we went with our huge double stroller and my oldest. And it was a little bit crazy. They also had a huge convention here for a little while called the Fantasy Con. And they had like an 80-foot giant dragon that would like sit in front of the doors, and it was animatronic, and its head would move and stuff. It was so cool. But they ended up losing funding for it, so they couldn't do it anymore. But we went to that with our oldest when he was little, and he was an Ewok because I had a little Ewok costume for him, and we had him in one of those reverse harnesses. And so we could hold on to him and walk around. So it was like our little Ewok, and like
Awesome.
people would take pictures with him because he was so cute. And like he was maybe 3.5 at that time. And it was a lot of fun. But since the pandemic, we're actually, and since getting into gaming, like this type of gaming, we are going to go to FanX this year in September. And I'm so excited because there are multiple people we've had on our shows that are coming as well. And so they're like, hey, come see me.
Yeah.
And I'm trying really hard to get a panel put together for FanX, for family friendly gaming and for the family gaming experience. Cause I feel like that's a hot topic for parents who have kidlets.
Yes. And like, you're only the second woman that I've had who has, maybe third woman that has kids. Most of the women that I've talked to don't have kids. And it does, like, it is a different joy in gaming with your kids when your kids start to take that on and you get to see like that explosive creativity, collaboration stuff. I love that. We're going to our first, my daughter has never been to one. And obviously like the last couple of years, we couldn't get across the border, even if there was something, the border was closed. But we're going to Gen Con in August. And like,
I am so jealous. I want to go so bad.
Have not been on a vacation in well before the pandemic. We have not been on a vacation since 2016. We went to China. My parents were teaching in China and we flew to China to see them.
Oh, wow.
Which was incredible. And cheaper than Hawaii, which like, because China's just, it's cheap.
That does not sound like
amazing.
A sentence that is true.
Amazing. It was so cool. Anyway, so it's like our first vacation in a while. And like, you know, we moved during the pandemic. It really forced us, like a lot of people, to reassess our priorities. And we moved across the country from Vancouver. We live in New England, like north of Maine now. And it's cheap compared to the West Coast, right?
Well, even here in Utah, it's ridiculous. Where my husband and I, we are in the process of like doing that for the first time, like purchasing a home. And when we first started looking in like the beginning of 2021, I'm looking at these housing prices, like 3-bedroom houses for like $550,000 in like the bad areas of the valley.
Right.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? The home that I grew up in a very rural area in northern Utah, like the home was going for $645,000. And I'm like, this is the home that I know this home is not worth $600,000. Like,
I mean, and what? Really like that's 100%. We were an hour outside of Vancouver. We weren't even in like the city itself. And we were looking at an apartment style condo that was 1,000 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, did not have laundry and unit, and hadn't been updated since the 70s. And it was like $500,000 and didn't include parking. And I was like, I can't do this.
No.
Where my husband's long-term disabled, he'll probably never go back to work again, which is fine because he raises our daughter and we get to homeschool and like we get to do all these other things. But I'm also a teacher, so I'm not making gobs of money. And we just decided like we need housing security. That's the priority for us. And so we moved to New England, where, you know, we bought a house for under $200,000, and it's not falling down. Like, I live in
you're like, it's actually a good house.
And so, you know, like, but reassessing those priorities. But because my mortgage is now a quarter of what my rent was in the city, and you know, my money's going a little bit further. So we had this kind of money set aside. And when I went to them, I was like, we can go to Disney World. We could fly back to the West Coast and go see our friends and family. They were like, that's not true. That's not true if anybody's watching. It's not true. And they, you know, and we were like, we could go to, sorry, Singles. My mom is mad at me now because she lives there. You're coming to see me in September.
You're so rude.
You're coming to see me. You're coming back. It's fine. She'll get over it. I was like, we could go to Paris. Like, we're only 4 hours from Europe. We could go to Europe.
And Paris is incredible.
Right. And normally for conventions, I went to Emerald City Comic Con on like a girls' weekend. Like that was not really something that we did like as a family. And they both were like, we would like to cosplay. So what's the option? And I was like, we're not just going to a convention.
You're like, if we're doing this, we're going all the way
out. I'm so excited. So we've never been to Gen Con. I'm so excited.
That's gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be so awesome.
I'm
excited.
so jealous. Like a lot of the creators that I've talked to, they're like, oh yeah, when I go to Gen Con this year, and I'm
like get to go see everybody. And like, I'm not saying that you should plan on getting COVID. It's not like chickenpox parties, remember?
Yeah.
But
yeah. I do remember those.
My husband and kiddo have just gotten over it. And I was totally exposed and didn't get it. Double vax and boosted, baby. Now is the time to go because they've got that immunity. Or, you know, they say like that immunity lasts like 90 to 100 days, in the 90 to 120 days. Now's the time to go.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Well, it's like they just had PaizoCon and they did it in person. And right after they sent out this letter that was like, we just have to let everyone know that we have confirmed cases of COVID. And I'm like, well, of course there were confirmed. Like, duh. You get more than 20 people together.
That on a bus. Like
confirmed. I know. It just makes me laugh when people send those things out. I'm like, well, logic would say.
We're gonna mask. We're going to take hand sanitizer. We're going to, you know, but like we also decided if we get there and everybody's like a dirty neckbeard and we get harassed for wearing a mask, we're still going to be on vacation together as a family. And there's other things to do in Indianapolis. So,
well, and I'm sure that's not going to happen in the regards
it's not going to happen. And
the
people that we're going to go, not that my husband and kid care, but like the people that I'm going to get to see are people that I've been working with for the last 2 years that I've never gotten to meet. So yeah, I'm super excited about it.
That's going to be fun. Are you guys cosplaying though?
My daughter is going. We're working on some things. It's not going to be high level cosplay because I'm not crafty. And nor is my husband. I will buy that from somebody who's crafty and proudly wear it. And that is just as valuable to me. And so I will get an artisan craftsman. Shout out to Naja Creations, who she's from Colombia. She does the best work and it's super cheap because the dollar goes a lot further in Colombia. So yeah, I'm not opposed to like us just purchasing it. But my daughter wants to go as her favorite character from the video game that she plays. She plays Genshin Impact. And her favorite character is like the god of the wind. His name is Venti and Barbados and goes by several different names because, you know, kitties. And she wants to go as this character. So I'm all for it. And my husband wants to go as his D&D character from our campaign. And right. And I'm just like, I mean, a lot of work and it's going to be real hot.
Just do a little elf ears, like just $6 on Amazon. Just buy little elf ears that can stick out from your hair, and then you're good.
I'm sure.
Or wear a T-shirt that says "I'm a Muggle."
I'm gonna wear like all of my streaming shirts. I have merch from like all the streams that I'm on. I'm gonna wear my stuff. I think, and I'm gonna wear my Girls Run These Worlds shirt, and I'm gonna wear my Fandolin by Night shirt like that.
Yeah. And you just see
I'm
if anybody recognizes you.
Or definitely nobody's gonna recognize me. Are you kidding me?
I know that's like people say that to me sometimes. Like, have you ever been recognized? I'm like, are you kidding me?
I would stalk that person to the end of their days, become a ghost, and haunt them for the rest of their life. The first person to recognize me in public is never going to get rid of me. Don't be that person,
part of your DNA,
because it is good. My ego would be unmanageable.
Well, before I left the world of music and the world of theater, I actually was getting to a place here in Salt Lake that I would get recognized.
It's amazing.
And people would say, "Oh, you played the evil stepmother in such and such this last year." And I'm like, "Yeah, I did." And the thing is, I'm 6'1".
Right.
And I have red hair. So I'm very easily, and I'm like as pale as a vampire.
Right.
So I'm very easily recognized in that regard. Like physically, it's easy to recognize me once you've met me. But I always found it so weird when people would be staring at me and I'm like, why are you? And then they'd come over and be like, oh my gosh, why are they coming over? And then they'd say they recognize me from something. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine.
I am such an extrovert that like, even if just a stranger comes over to talk to me, my batteries are full for the rest of the day. I am very much that person. But my ego,
you're like, it would be unmanageable.
My friend Sean is here in chat, Akinful. He does music. If you ever need music, I pimp him out on purpose. He's
nice.
amazing.
Okay.
We were playing Minecraft one time and I got this pair of like, they're called Frostwalker boots, and they turn the water to ice and they let you walk.
That's nice.
On the water. And he was like, do you understand how fucking cool I am right now? You're not going to be able to tell me shit. I am the coolest person on the planet. That moment is going to be me at the point where somebody ever recognizes me for the work that I'm doing with Girls Run These Worlds. My ego will never recover from that. I will start demanding like writers and like specific color M&Ms. There's coming back
who I am.
One person recognizing me. It's going to be Singless knows. It's going to be a dangerous day.
That's hilarious.
Before we run out of time, can you show me your dice?
Yes. Okay. So I have two different sets of dice that I love. So this set is the first set that I ever bought. So they're like a maroony red red color, and they're come on, focus
Love them.
Okay. Oh, there we go. So they're metal and just heavenly.
Where did you get them from?
So I got them from our local game store, Haster Games. And I mean, this is Salt Lake. There's like 55 game stores in Salt Lake. Because this is like the nerd capital of the world, in case you didn't know that.
I did know that. Yeah.
It is. Most people don't know that Utah, specifically Salt Lake, is the nerd capital of the world. That's why FanX is the second largest convention in the country. But so I went to Haster, and it was right before we started gaming. And I bought myself this set, and then I bought my husband a steel like cobalt blue set, because I was like, this is it. This is the inaugural. This is the first. It's so exciting. And so I got him that set. And then when I went to Jackson, Wyoming, I bought this set, which just, I don't know, it spoke to my heart. And these ones are die hard dice.
Die hard dice. We love die hard dice.
And they're just, it's just like
go
a dark,
for like that. Red is like
red.
Your whole theme. Hey.
Oh yeah.
I love it.
Oh yeah. Red and green are like, it's my total thing. So I like half of my dice are red in like different shades of red.
That is okay. So when you've got your dice out, do you pick dice by like the mood that you're in? Do you roll them all to see what's rolling well? Like, what's your dice superstitions?
So I have my set of dice. So I always use my metal dice, and then I use my red dice. But then I have all these like just random ones from like all of the dice that I just randomly buy. Like I have an entire set of mini dice. Like they're so much fun. They're like they're okay. I've got to show you guys how small these are. I bought these at Target. So at Target in the dollar spot, they had all of these like math. They call them like math dice.
Yeah.
And they were full RPG sets, and then because it had like the plus and minuses too, but like see how tiny these are.
Tiny.
They're such baby dice. They made me very happy. But then I'll just have those randomly around, so that if my sets of dice start rolling badly, I get really mad. And there was one game I did throw a D20.
Look.
And I'm sorry if you can hear my children in the background.
No, it's fine.
But I was so angry, and it was my set of red. It was my reds. And I was so ticked off rolling that I live on stream, I just chucked it across our studio. And my husband's like, whoa, like, please don't hit me with the dice. I'm like, yeah. So I don't really have any like tradition or like superstitions where like I have to roll them, and any that get ones. Oh, sorry. Any that get ones, like I take out. I'm not like that, but I do have like my favorite dice that I like to roll. And if they're bad to me, then I will put them in timeout.
They go away. One of my guests a couple weeks ago was like, they're just kind of like children, and maybe they're just tired. So I don't put mine in dice jail. I have a dice bed, and they just take a nap. And I was like, oh,
that's so precious.
That's so cute. I've never recovered from that show from a couple weeks ago like that.
That is so
Isn't
sweet.
That so sweet?
I have my aggressive side comes out when I play. And so I don't, because I'm generally a fairly relaxed individual. I do struggle with depression. So when I'm in a deep depressive episode, I am not a nice person. And especially to my family and my husband, we have really good communication. So when I wake up in a day that it's like that, I'm like, it's a bad day. So I need you to leave. Like, you understand what that means.
Yeah.
And the babies are here.
Hi, sweetie.
Okay, Jacob, I need you to go, baby. I love you. Go. I will snuggle you when I get done, okay?
Oh.
Go shut the door. Shut the door. Yeah, he's my baby. I don't have favorites.
No, nobody has favorites. There's just some that hit different.
Yeah, and he is that one for me.
You know what? I'm one and done. I was like, can't beat perfection. We're not even going to try. First time, natural 20.
You're like, we're good. We're good. No, he was our surprise baby. And because I had his brother, the ages, if you notice, our ages right now, 9, 6, and 5. And that 6 and 5 were not on purpose. That was when you're 9 months postpartum and you find out you're pregnant.
I have a better story. Okay.
Here's my story
about this. When we did our like walkthrough of like the hospital, you go, and because like I was a first time mom, it was a bunch of other first time moms, you tour the hospital, you get to know them, and because you're all usually going to have your babies right around the same time. Yeah. And so then you get together a couple months later and you're like, we're all first time moms. Here's our babies. How is everything going? You're just trying to like calibrate, Yeah. And so we get to like, it was one of the moms. It was not her first time, but we lived in a military town. So she was there because it was her first time giving birth at this hospital.
The hospital. Yeah. That makes sense.
This was their 4th child. And she was like, we're done. My husband I'm going to be upstairs having a C-section. He's going downstairs and getting a vasectomy. We're done. And so we get together 2 months postpartum.
She says she's pregnant. She's pregnant again,
she's pregnant.
She? Vasectomies, it takes 3 months.
You even thought about things in this time? My daughter's 13 and I'm not fully recovered. Like, what? So then we get together at Christmas, 6 months, or our kids were born in the summer. We get together at Christmas. And she goes, I had my gender ultrasound. We're like, that's incredible. So what are you having? And she goes, well, it's a really interesting story. And I was like, okay, go ahead, regale me. She goes, the technician measures is very silent. She was like, this is our now 5th child.
You're used to
how this goes. And so we were like concerned that something was wrong. And finally we were like, look, just tell us, this is our 5th child. We're going to be able to handle it. Just tell us.
Yeah.
And the technician kind of looked at them and went, okay, well, here, let me show you. Congratulations. It's a boy and a girl and a boy.
She triplets?
What? Oh
my gosh.
And so she's telling us this. Our kids are 6 months old. All of the rest of us are first time moms. And all of us are like, I think we're done. We're not even going to chance it anymore. I think
you hear a story like that and you're like, you
done.
come home to your spouse and you're like, never, you're not allowed to touch me.
So they went from 4 to 7 in 8.5 months.
Oh my gosh.
The difference between their 3 triplets and their next oldest was 9 months.
That's those. I mean, those are Irish twins, but in this case, it would be Irish quadruplets.
I mean,
that is insane. Did you ever see her later in life? Like,
no,
after
we moved
they
away.
had them?
I should Facebook stalk her after this and find out. Like,
you should, because
her kids would all be teenagers. My daughter's about to turn 13 next month.
Yeah, so they'd all of them would be 13 and 12.
Yeah. 3 12-year-olds and a 13-year-old. And like her older kids weren't older.
No.
And then I had a friend who like her youngest was 18 and she thought she was going through menopause.
No, she was pregnant.
I think that's even worse.
That is my horror. That is like the worst possible scenario for me, because I struggled with depression before I had kids, but then with each baby, so with all 3 of them, it progressively got worse. And to the point where now I am very aware, and I've had to, we've had some, I mean, that's a discussion for another day, but like, it's been a major issue with in my adult life. Right. And I can't even imagine having another child. Like, it came time to switch out IUD, and I was like I was in like panic attack in the waiting room, because I was like, because I got pregnant with Jacob, my baby, on an IUD.
What?
So yeah.
Don't tell me that. Oh God.
That's why our next form of contraceptives will be my husband getting a vasectomy.
I'm moving out of my bedroom. I can't even chance it.
You're like, nope. And we always joke. She's
gonna be 13. I can't.
You're like, no.
I can't chance that. I can't
that would
risk that.
mortify me. I couldn't at this point, I'm like, no.
Oh, I feel sick. Oh.
You're like, and this is a super happy note to,
you know what?
End the
Look,
show.
I started Community Cleric to talk to real women about real things, because these are things that, like, this is my mod is like, more dice, more cleanse the timeline, more
like,
dice.
Please stop.
Here, these I will say stories that tell me that. And not to say that men as DMs couldn't tell these stories, but you tell me when you have ever, and I love Matt Mercer. You're not going to hear a bad thing about Brittany Mulligan or anybody from me, but tell me when you would hear a man DM, even the best world builders, talk about an NPC who, found out that she was pregnant with triplets after, having 4, like, these things make our worlds real and make our worlds visceral, clearly because of chat. And like,
because
we have
when
stories
you have
to tell.
When you have very different experiences in life. So my husband and I are building a world right now called Valley Toss. And Valley Toss in the original Greek means exposure, vulnerability. And this world is being created specifically because of my struggle with depression and him in his position as being my caregiver. And like, the reality of living with someone who struggles with mental health is something that is very difficult to describe to someone who's never experienced it. And because I grew up with it, not realizing that I grew up with anxiety and depression, and then as an adult being able to identify all these things, it's like realizing that not everybody experiences that. Like, not everybody, their lives are so hard to get through, made me realize that was kind of a calling that I had to be honest. Just be honest. And so for years, whenever I was asked to speak at large community events or religious events, that was always what I ended up speaking on, even if it was not what I intended on speaking on. While I'd be up there in front of the microphone, I would end up just being what I talked about. And so this world we're creating takes mental health and puts it in like a gamified version. So there's like a daily roll that you roll a dice and it puts you in more chaos or more order. I hate this boom arm. I don't know how he handles it. But it helps to kind of showcase and show like, hey, this is what it's like to have depression. It is a roll of the dice every morning. on
Yeah.
whether or not it's going to be okay. And you can be triggered by anything. And when
Right.
your triggers are things you can't get away from, like my trigger is my oldest son. And it's very difficult because he'll do something and then I go inward, or I get really, really angry, or I have to leave, or I want to go eat chocolate. And like, of course, that's not helpful and whatnot. So my husband, he's the one who's really building it, and he brings it to me and we talk about lore and things like that. There's a whole pantheon of gods and whatnot, but it's all based on this idea of chaos and order and showing how mental health can fluctuate and be different. And there are monsters that are based specifically on how much fear the character has at that moment, on how big the monster is or how powerful it is, because that is what happens, like with anxiety, is that the more scared you get, the more it feels insurmountable, and you have to do things to bring that back. So then in this game, you can literally destroy and kill the thing that is causing you pain and stress. I am very excited about joining this world for our next campaign, because it's going to, we both feel very strongly about it, that it's going to change a lot of things for us personally, but we're also hoping it opens a door for other people to talk about it and to be willing to chat about mental health.
And I love that idea that, like, I mean, being a special education teacher, I use TTRPGs in my classroom for things like social skills.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a counselor, so I'm not using it as therapy, but
Yeah.
certainly, I think I would love to have you back to talk more about this, because
Yeah.
like, one of the big things that's been going on this week in, TTRPG Twitter is talking about, should we be streaming session zeros to show how they should be done?
Yeah.
But you want people to be honest. And when you're streaming, it is very hard to be vulnerable. So if you are playing, you and your husband have this incredible relationship, you're using it as a way to
Mm-hmm.
build a further relationship, like, that you guys can be vulnerable. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm really inspired. My husband and I are always looking to do something, like usually a show together and then discussing
Mm-hmm.
it or whatever, but like,
Yeah.
maybe
Do some
inspire
games. Well,
James.
you should. And it's interesting that you say that, because I had someone recently, like within the last like maybe day and a half, reach out to me and say, have you guys written, or do you know of GM one player games?
Right.
Not games like as in just games in general, but like modules or adventure paths or whatever.
Right.
And I'm like, honestly, they don't exist.
There's not many.
There's like one. There's D&D Duet. They have a couple that they've done, but this person was asking specifically for Pathfinder.
Right.
And I'm like, there is nothing for Pathfinder. I'm really sorry. But so we're in talks, Weston and I, in our off time, because we're going to take a couple of months off once this campaign we're currently playing ends and the new one starts, of writing a couple of just one shots that couples can sit down and just play together.
That's
and you
cool.
can, and we want to build it out enough that like you could play, like if you wanted to GM, then you could GM, and then a week later you can use the same module, but then you can have your spouse GM, and it's built out far enough that it's like you could take an adventure this direction or this direction, and it's not going to spoil it for the person. I mean, I had a whole grandiose, because theater, we do things big. I had this whole grandiose thing about doing one a month, and how there was like a background story in each of the one shots that ended up culminating in a big thing at the end. And if you were paying attention, then you'd see all the little things. And I'm really big for my britches sometimes. I'm still a mom of 3 children, and I work full time and I stream part time. So,
I mean, but look, you gotta do the things that you gotta do. And like, I don't know, you're not going to get an argument from, got to take your mental health seriously, and you got to do self-care. And this is the way that some people do it. Some people go to quilting shows, and some people go to football games.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I, play Minecraft, and
I
RPGs
read
with my friends, and like,
yeah, exactly. You have to, I feel like as life gets more and more chaotic, you have to find things to hold on to, and like things that are going to keep you in a place of peace and calm. And for me, that's like playing with my husband, because it's always so much fun. And we always just laugh and giggle and we're very silly. And then we have these really, really serious moments where I'm crying on the other side of the table and he's tearing up. And it's like these really deep, impactful things. But like, that's what keeps us steady. And I know that as long as we are steady, my family, my kids will be steady, and like we will be able to get through everything because, oh my gosh, I'm like on my stop. Okay, just tell me shut up when you're like, okay, we're done.
Good.
But I feel so deeply that intimate relationships with your partner, especially if you have children and you're trying to keep everything out of complete chaos in your life, that is the most important thing, is to focus on your relationship with your spouse. My husband and I, we are best friends and we are lovers and we are partners, and everything that we do together. But that wasn't always so easy as it is now. There was a period of time where he and I, we were just off kilter and we couldn't figure out why. But we knew every day it was getting worse. And it was after my second child was born. And my husband said to me, if we don't change something, this is going to end. And I'm not willing to let it end. And I'm like, well, neither am I. So we have to figure this out. And we went through a really long journey, like probably 2+ years of just trying to figure out how to talk to each other. And it was a lot of vulnerability and being willing to say, look, what you just said really hurt me. And not saying it in anger, but saying it in a, we have to figure this out. Yeah. And so after 2 years of doing that, we finally got into this place where it was like communication was a normal thing, where he says something that bothers me, and then I don't go and snit about it and go gossip with my friends and whatever. I turn around and say, hey, that really hurt. Or like, what's going on? You're really snappy today. And I like, if there's anything I can do to help you, like if it's a work thing, I will just let you have your space or whatever. And that has made it possible for us to play together every week, for us to work literally back to back in our office, and creating this world of Valitas. If you don't have that level of trust, like somebody asked us as we were talking about it on our show, like maybe you shouldn't be that vulnerable with people you don't know very well. And I was like, no, don't ever be vulnerable like that with people you don't know. I do not condone that in any way. But I'm like, Weston and I have built such a relationship that we can be fully vulnerable at the table and talk about things that most other people would be absolutely horrified to talk about, like depression and suicidal ideation and miscarriages and things like that, because he is my safe space. He is my rock and I am his. So it's a very unique situation for us to be in and be able to talk about it. And I so deeply want people to be able to see that it's possible.
Yeah.
Because so much of our media now just shows broken marriages, broken relationships, people who are in absolute misery. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, hard agree. And I think the other thing that really struck me at, I don't know, maybe the 10 year, maybe, no, it was maybe beyond that, 15 years, maybe. Some point more recently than definitely at the beginning was when my husband or I would get upset, when my husband would get upset and have to walk away. Love to me was when I realized our relationship is secure enough that I don't have to chase after him and demand for it solved right now. He can go, take a breath. I know that he is not leaving.
Yeah.
We are going to solve it, but he needs some space.
A minute. Because
I grew up in a home like you needed to solve things, or
like you stayed there until you fixed it.
Yes. And not in the healthy way. And so, I think for me, like just my husband going to come back, and it took 15 years to deprogram me from that worry that he would like bail. And so now,
I get that,
like can be annoyed, or I can be annoyed way, and we know that we're going to come back and solve it, but that the emotion is big right now. And then the other thing that I've noticed in the last couple of years since that's really set in, our daughter's 12, her anxiety has because she sees a healthy relationship, and that's been really supportive.
Yeah, well, and that's my boys. I want my boys to see that. I want them to grow up watching their father, who cares so deeply, to always be working on our relationship, because there's enough people that see examples of broken relationships and they don't know how to have a functional relationship. So I'm sorry, we could talk 5 hours just about that.
You know what? It's so good. It's so good. Like I love all of that.
And TTRPGs are great, and they just brought us together even more.
Look, I wouldn't have met my husband if it wasn't a tabletop. It was an email role-playing game, but you know.
That is so cool, though. Like, I love
nerds.
That so
We're
much.
hard. We win the nerd. We win the nerd. Next time I have you on, here's the teaser so that everybody will come back and watch the next time. I will tell you the story of how I accidentally sexted my pastor while high on morphine and 8 months pregnant.
I want that story so bad. I want it so bad.
My life is for public consumption.
Okay, here. There's your story. My story. Dating a set of brothers and kissing both of them.
You were dating them at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
Girl. Is it
not
your current husband's brother?
No.
Okay. I was like, I don't know. That Thanksgiving must be so
You're
awkward.
like, well, that's awkward. No, I've actually only seriously dated 2 men in my life. And this was my first boyfriend. And I thought I was super hot to trot, and I made mistakes. So next time I'll tell you guys that story.
We have so many stories to continue to tell. Thank you for being my guest.
Thank you for having me.
Where can people find you later this week?
Yes. So tomorrow we have our actual play on our Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/Party of 2RPG. And you can find us on Twitter at Party of 2RPG Live, or you can find me because I'm the social person in our partnership. He's the tech person. I'm a social person. But my personal is Hayley M_Bell. And I'm like all over the place on that one. I talk about TTRPGs and random thoughts that I have. And I like Twitter. I've always liked Twitter, and I expected it to be horrible when I joined it. And then I found it so wonderful. And I'm like, I just don't go to those communities that are really bad. Like, I don't get into the politics. I'm like, I just sit in my little space with paranormal, crazy ghosts and UFOs and TTRPGs.
And look, the block button is free. They don't charge you per use. It's seriously not 10, 10, 220. Use it, baby.
And block.
Yes. Curate your piece.
I always get so fascinated though when I find threads and then I find somebody that's blocked me. That's like, you can't see that.
I had my first experience.
Who is it that blocked me?
Somebody blocked me. I went looking to block them, but they had
already
the
blocked
thread
you.
Where I was like, I'm coming for you. Watch out. And they had already blocked me.
They blocked you.
It was somebody who was complaining about the D&D wheelchair. And I will fight those people all day long. And their stupid comic was like, oh, thank goodness there's a D&D wheelchair. Now I'm good. And then a cleric walks up and casts level 1 heal spell. Well, first off, cure wounds cures wounds. It's in the title.
Yeah.
But also, there's lots of reasons why people might be in a wheelchair.
But I just at the end of the day,
you
play
can
your
believe
game.
in Dungeons and Dragons, but just let people love what they love. God,
there are no rules. That's the point. There's no rules. Can we just? Yes. I hate watching people online fight about stuff like that because I'm like, dude.
Agreed.
It's your table.
Agreed.
Play however you want to.
You want to. There is a table for everybody, even ableist jerk faces. There is plenty, believe me, of tables for you. Yeah. Go and find them at the OSR conference. Go find your table.
Go find your people.
Don't be up in my Twitter.
Yeah.
Be respectful. Yep. So anyway.
Agreed. Anyway, that's where you can find me.
And for being my guest.
I'm so happy that
we've thrown your stuff in chat lots of times. I am definitely going to have you back, and thank you.
I will make myself available whenever you want me to come.
So good. We are going to raid Tales of Initiative. They are playing Old Town in the New West, and it's their finale. That's a 3-episode limited series,
wow.
and it's their finale. So we're going to go raid them. And thank you, Hayley, for being my guest. Everybody, I will see you next week. I have Fenway, the team DM. She is the creator of Jasper's Game Day. And I'm so super excited to chat with her.
So cool.
So yeah, thanks. And then a couple weeks, Fuzka, who's been here and chat with me all night. So thanks, everybody. We will see you guys next week. And for being here, everybody.